US has announced its sanction on Russia's two giant oil production companies, Lukoil and Rosneft. But wait, what exactly are sanctions? In simple terms, they're tools countries use to pressure or punish others without using military force. Imagine you're in school and one student keeps breaking the rules. Maybe they hit someone or won't listen to the teacher. The teacher might say, "You can't play outside until you behave." That's kind of what a sanction is, but between countries instead of kids. When a country, a group, or even a person does something like hurting people, starting fights, or not following international laws. Instead of using weapons, countries use non-military measures like sanctions to show disapproval and encourage change. Other countries can decide to limit what they can do. They might say, "You can't buy or sell certain things," or "You can't use our banks," or even "You can't travel to our countries." These rules are made to make the person or country change their behavior. Sometimes only one country makes the rule, called unilateral sanctions, and sometimes a group of countries works together through international organizations like the United Nations or European Union to apply collective sanctions. This sanction is more effective than a unilateral sanction. The more countries involved, the more effective the sanctions will be. Sanctions aren't forever. They're like a timeout. Once the country or person starts behaving better and follows the rules again, the sanctions can be taken away. There are several kinds of sanctions, and each one is used in a different way to encourage the sanctioned body, like a country, group, or a person, to change its behavior peacefully. One common type is an economic sanction. This is the most powerful sanction because it involves money. For example, the US stopped giving financial support and banking access to North Korea because of its nuclear weapons program. The idea was to make it harder for North Korea to fund those activities and encourage it to come back to peaceful discussions. As we have seen before, the US oil sanctions targeting Russia's two largest oil companies are also considered as economic sanctions. It means this sanction limit or stop trade with the sanctioned body, and the sanctioned body's money or assets that are kept in foreign banks can be frozen. This reduces the sanctioned body's income and puts pressure on it to follow international rules. Second, diplomatic sanctions, where countries reduce or suspend official relationships with a sanctioned body, like closing embassies or stopping leaders or businesspersons from traveling. Third is military sanctions. This sanction ensured to stop the sanctioned country or group from getting weapons, military equipment, or related technology to prevent aggression. For example, the UN banned arms sales to North Korea. Fourth is sports sanction. Russia has been handed a 4-year ban from all major international sporting events by the World Anti-Doping Agency. In short, each type of sanction serves a specific purpose. Together, they are peaceful tools used to guide the sanctioned body toward fairer, safer, and more responsible behavior in the international community. In the past, sanctions were mostly used against entire countries to pressure their governments to change their behavior or leadership. But over time, people realized that broad sanctions often cause suffering for innocent civilians. So now, sanctions are more targeted, focusing on specific groups or individuals responsible for harmful actions instead of the general population. When we talk about sanctions, we often imagine them as powerful tools, a way for nations to punish or pressure others without going to war. But in reality, sanctions don't always work the way they're intended to. There are several deep and complex reasons behind this. First, sanctions rely heavily on international cooperation. If the global community doesn't stand united, their impact weakens. For example, when one group of countries imposes sanctions, but others continue to trade secretly or openly with the targeted nation, it creates loopholes. These third-party nations can act as backdoors, supplying goods, buying oil, or helping with financial transactions, all of which allow the targeted country to survive. Second, many sanctioned countries develop creative ways to adapt or resist. They find new trading partners, build alternative systems, or strengthen ties with countries that oppose the sanctioning powers. A clear example is China's creation of the Cross-Border Interbank Payment System, CIPS, which serves as an alternative to the Western-dominated SWIFT system. This allows sanctioned countries to continue international financial transactions without depending on Western approval. Third, sanctions often fail to achieve their political objectives. They are meant to pressure governments into changing behavior, ending wars, respecting human rights, or stopping nuclear programs. But history shows us this doesn't always happen. Take Russia, for instance. Despite some of the harshest sanctions in modern history after its invasion of Ukraine, Moscow continues its military operations and has managed to adjust its economy by redirecting oil exports to countries like India and China. This shows that even severe economic isolation doesn't always force a political retreat. Moreover, sanctions can produce unintended humanitarian consequences. Instead of hurting only political leaders or elites, they often impact ordinary citizens the most. In countries like Venezuela, sanctions worsened already dire conditions, leading to shortages of medicine, food, and other essentials. As a result, the population suffered deeply, while the ruling elites often found ways to shield themselves from the worst effects.